What is going on, everybody? Welcome into Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. I'm Howard Bender. With me, of course, Adam Ronis. It is time to start taking a look ahead the Week 15 slate of games. Adam, we just finished a little overtime battle between the Raiders and the Chargers. Went the right way for some, didn't go the right way for others. Derek Carr owners are flipping out if they actually made that start in their fantasy playoffs. But what are you going to do, man? I went up against Justin Herbert. That wasn't pleasant. Anybody going up against you this week that just went off in last night's game?
Yeah, Darren Waller. I have him in one league, but I went against him and he dropped 30 on me. That's not fun. I have Travis Kelce in that league, so it's like, oh, I got an advantage. Well, probably not this week. And then I did have Justin Herbert on a team as well, so that was nice. You know, a lot of people were concerned about starting him this week, but I was pretty confident. Even with the injuries at wide receiver, we see how good Herbert is, and he made the young guys like Johnson and Guyton better players. He's just a really good quarterback. And can you imagine if he had a good head coach? I know Pep Hamilton's their quarterback coach, seems to have done a good job with them, but we know how bad Anthony Lynn is. We see it week in, week out. I mean, Herbert was tearing them up, and they kept running the ball on first down every play. It's just infuriating. They kept putting Herbert in tough spots, and he would bail them out. I mean, if he had better coaching, who knows how good he could be.
Seriously, that's definitely we're looking at Anthony Lynn as probably one of the coaches, one of the first to get the heave ho. Once the season ends, either him and Adam Gase, both of them, gonna shuffle him out the door. Well, all right. Well, Thursday night football is over. We've got to take a look ahead and see what's going on with the rest of this. Let's start off our conversation here, Adam, with two Saturday games. You got Buffalo going up against Denver. You got Green Bay going up against Carolina. We'll start with the Bills against the Broncos. It's in Denver. It's kind of funny because the point spread, it started off at 6.5 that the Bills were favored by. It's now down to actually 5.5 is what I'm seeing, because a lot of money was coming in on the Broncos. Josh Allen, how confident are you in this Bills offense going into Denver, especially when so many fantasy owners are relying on Allen, on Diggs, even on Cole Beasley?
Yeah, I think you have to be confident. Whether they win the game by a lot, cover the number, that's a different story. But it's just really tough to go against this Buffalo offense right now. Josh Allen's played amazing. Didn't have like the greatest game against Pittsburgh, but still had 238, 2 touchdowns. The completion percentage wasn't what we're used to seeing, but we know Pittsburgh's a solid defense. Denver's really banged up in the secondary. So I think you have confidence. Josh Allen's a top 5 quarterback this week. Stephon Diggs is having an amazing season, 100 receptions already. Doesn't get in the end zone a ton. Beasley solid at PPR. And in deeper formats, we've seen Gabriel Davis perform without John Brown on the field. You're pretty much staying away from the Buffalo running backs. If you have to use someone, it's Singletary, but you don't feel good about it. This team just doesn't run the football.
So on the Denver side, if they're going to put up points, can they run the football? Will we see Melvin Gordon, shine a little bit in this one, or are we going to have to try and rely on Drew Lock to hit his receivers downfield?
Yeah, Lock's coming off a good game, 4 touchdowns against Carolina, but it's just difficult to see him repeating that. Buffalo's defense is not what it was. They did play better last week. Gordon's an RB2 based on volume. You hope he finds the end zone. You know, he's the goal line back. He's the pass catching back, although Drew Lock is just really not throwing much to the running backs, especially lately, too. Gordon did have 3 receptions last week, but he's an RB2. The receivers, Tim Patrick just comes through every week. He's a wide receiver 3. And then Jerry Jeudy gets open, but Drew Lock doesn't look for him, man. It's really a disappointment for those that have Jerry Jeudy this year, because I did think he was one of the top receivers coming out of this draft, and it hasn't panned out that way for fantasy this year.
Yeah, it looks like Gordon, Fant, Patrick, probably the 3 most reliable offensive weapons coming in from Denver. Now, the other game, Carolina visiting Green Bay. We talk about it all the time. The best way to beat Carolina is on the ground, but we're conflicted now because Aaron Rodgers is looking to pad his stats and get that MVP award. So we're obviously all in on Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones, though, what are we doing?
You got to play him. I mean, I still have him as a top 5 running back this week. Even in DFS, I think you could look to him if people are going to shy away. Yeah, he's one of these games. He's going to have 100+ rushing yards and a touchdown, maybe 2. I know Aaron Rodgers keeps throwing the ball near the goal line. I do think he is trying to pad his stats and win the MVP. There's no question about it, and he's right there with Patrick Mahomes in that conversation. But I do have Rodgers ranked as the #1 quarterback this week. It's a really good matchup. I do think Carolina keeps this close. So I like them getting 8.5. I think this line's a little off only because Carolina's coming off a loss last week. But Green Bay's defense isn't good. They're allowing more than 24 points per game. They struggle against the run. Mike Davis finally had that game that we expected last week. DJ Moore is going to be back off the COVID list. We'll see about Curtis Samuel. He was added to the injury report. If he plays, he's in a good spot. So I like this Carolina offense. I think they're going to put up points, and I think this game's going to be close.
I agree with you completely there. I definitely like taking Carolina plus the 8.5. No doubt about it. All right. Well, those are the Saturday games. So we wet our whistle with Thursday night. We have our appetizer on Saturday. Let's dive into the main course here. We'll start it off. I'll just go down the list here. We'll highlight a couple of things about each game and what we like, what we don't. We'll start off Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Right? There it is. Like immediately, it's so funny. I say Lamar Jackson, I think of the Rumbly Bumblies, then it's Bubble Gut, and then it's Mud Butt there for him. But, I mean, listen, he doesn't need to be at 100% to beat up on these Jaguars. So some fantasy value out of this game. Where's it coming the most?
Yeah, clearly Lamar Jackson, you're playing him. It's a great matchup. He's going to run the football. I think you have to like J.K. Dobbins. He seems to be the back getting most of the touches. Of course, the upside is capped with the presence of Lamar Jackson with the 2 rushing touchdowns last week and Gus Edwards, who had 2. I think Gus Edwards, if you're desperate, you can use him. You're definitely relying on touchdowns. He only had 7 carries last week, so it feels like chasing. But, this is a game that they should have the lead late. And, Gus Edwards could get 10 touches and maybe find the end zone once. And when you get into that running back area where Edwards is ranked, there's a lot of question marks. It sounds like Marquise Brown is on track to play. That was the comments from Harbaugh today. It was contact tracing there for the COVID list. He's a dicey play. You're relying on big plays. He has come through lately. The risk is they build a big lead and they don't pass much. So, but then again, they could throw early. He could be wide open. I mean, Jacksonville's just decimated in the secondary. So he's a wide receiver 3. Again, there is risk with him. And Mark Andrews, I think you have to feel pretty good about it. I have him as the tight end 3 this week. Moved him over Hawkinson with Hawkinson potentially without Matthew Stafford. Not that it's terrible, but when you'd have to put Andrews over him. Andrews looked good last week, so it's a good matchup. So you got to love the Ravens offense. On the Jacksonville side, just keep continuing to play James Robinson. I know he didn't have a big game last week, but he just gets the volume. He's kind of the only back. And then I guess you could consider DJ Chark. With Gardner Minshew back. I know Chark was critical of him earlier this year, but I think it will help him a little bit. It's tough to rely on anyone else. Maybe Laviska Shenault if you're desperate, but you don't want to really go too much with Jacksonville here.
All right. Seattle, they're a 7-point favorite over the Washington football team. I think we know everything we need to know about Seattle with Russell Wilson and Chris Carson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. That's all fine and dandy. On the Washington side here, Antonio Gibson ruled out. Alex Smith ruled out. Dwayne Haskins under center. While I don't love Dwayne Haskins by any stretch of the imagination against this Seattle defense, Terry McLaurin's really starting to pop for me.
Yeah, if you look at the numbers, McLaurin's numbers have been better with Haskins because we know Alex Smith loves to throw short, check down a lot, and we've seen McLaurin off a couple of bad games. So Seattle hasn't been good against wide receivers this year. They've been better lately, but 2 of those matchups were the Giants and Jets. So, and the Giants had Colt McCoy at quarterback where he wasn't challenging them at all. So those, of course, are going to put those numbers down. So, yeah, I'm going to go back to McLaurin. Logan Thomas, borderline tight end 1. I think this hurts McKissick a little bit, though, because Haskins doesn't check down as much as Alex Smith. So I might bump down McKissick just a little bit. He's low-end RB2, high-end RB3. He did have 11 carries last week. But, yeah, this Washington defense has played very well. It's going to be interesting to see what Seattle does because Seattle has really struggled. I know they bounced back last week against the Jets, and Wilson had 4 touchdowns, but this is not the best matchup for this Seahawks offense, which has really been struggling for the past 5-6 weeks.
Yeah, Washington's always a great DFS play. They get the sacks. Seattle's giving up the sacks. Russell Wilson takes a little bit of a beating there. So I'm with you on that one for sure. Houston going into Indianapolis. It's the second time in 3 weeks that these teams are going to be matched up. The last time, Colts did some nice damage against them. They ended up winning the game. The defense is rock solid. Jonathan Taylor ready to bust out again against Houston. The T.Y. Hilton situation is always nice. Phillip Rivers. On the Texans side here, DeForest Buckner is listed as questionable for the game. That is actually, the defense doesn't play as well with Buckner out, so we're going to have to watch that closely. That all of a sudden, that helps out Deshaun Watson, who, let's face it, he hit Kute and he hit Chad Hansen, each for over 100 yards the last time these teams played.
Yeah, and Brandon Cooks is expected to play. I haven't seen anything for Friday yet, but he was limited. But they expect him to play, so that's definitely a good thing there. So I know people are kind of worried about Watson. I think everything kind of just collapsed for him last week. He didn't have his top running back, his top receivers. Akins dropped that pass. But I think Watson will be fine this week. And the Colts defense hasn't been great lately either. And then, like you said, with Buckner out, certainly a big upgrade for the Texans offense. And starting to kind of look at them getting that 7.5.
Yeah, with Buckner being out, I wouldn't be so against that either. 51.5 over-under on that game as well. Tampa Bay taking on division rival Atlanta. Tampa's a 6-point favorite, over-under 48.5. No Julio Jones, so we know it's Matt Ryan who's going to kind of stink it up a little bit, but he's got Calvin Ridley, who is a must-start. But talk to me, Tampa Bay on the other side of that field. Ronald Jones has the COVID. Leonard Fournette is expected to be the lead back. Do you trust Leonard Fournette, or is Tom Brady taking over?
I don't trust Fournette. I kind of have him ranked somewhere around 29-30 at running back. But, again, it's such a tough decision to make to start him. I know people want to, but, number one, Atlanta is really good against the run, especially the last 4 or 5 weeks. So I do think they're going to go pass heavy. I want to see Brady have a big game. I was very disappointed last week. Only 23 pass attempts in that game, and he was missing receivers. He had Gronk open deep, missed him. I thought coming off the bye and with this schedule to finish that we might see a strong conclusion to the season for Brady. It didn't start that way last week, but Atlanta is vulnerable in the secondary, and this is a matchup that they have to exploit. So you'd think Brady would bounce back. It's always tough trying to figure out who's going to be the guy. We know Evans gets the red zone targets. I think Godwin will be better this week. Gronk's a tight end one. Antonio Brown seems to be the guy that we feel least confident in, though, of the 3 receivers at this point. But it's a good matchup across the board for the Tampa Bay offense. It's tough for me to trust Fournette, though.
Understandable. Definitely understandable. Detroit, they're visiting the Tennessee Titans. Titans are an 11-point favorite. Matthew Stafford misses practice again on Friday. Does not seem to be in line to play this week. They haven't exactly ruled him out yet, but sounds like Chase Daniel's going to be under center. DeAndre Swift, he is going to play. He is back. He is ready to go. But I got to be honest with you. I worry a little bit about a little box stacking here. Do you trust DeAndre Swift in your lineups?
Yeah, I'm going to play him. He's an RB2. I mean, there are some situations where maybe you don't play him because a guy like Cam Akers has moved past him, and Jonathan Taylor or Montgomery. So in that situation, if you're picking 3 or 4, sure, he's the odd guy out. But he's so dynamic, and he doesn't need a lot of touches to perform. There's a chance Stafford plays. He's going to travel with the team. Probably doesn't play, but it's Matthew Stafford. I mean, the guy is tough as hell. So maybe there is a chance. I would say likely not. So in that instance, I'm really only playing Swift and Hockenson. And that's about it. We've seen Chase Daniel when he's in there. He does look for Hockenson. So I would just only go Swift and Hockenson for Detroit.
On the Tennessee side, obviously, Derrick Henry is money in the bank. A.J. Brown, even Corey Davis. As much as I hate Corey Davis, this is a smash spot for him.
No, it is. Definitely. I mean, the only risk that we worry about with Tennessee is, how quickly does the game get out of hand? They probably let Tannehill throw early and then pound it with Derrick Henry late. That's what you hope. If you have A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, That's what you hope. Or Tannehill, because Tannehill is a QB1 this week. So you hope that he can get you like 270, 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 early, and then they just let Derrick Henry run all over that horrible run defense. Or Derrick Henry's first carry of the game goes for 82 yards. And then you're like, oh, shoot, come on. Stay competitive for a little while, please. We need Tannehill numbers. I need A.J. Brown. I have A.J. Brown in a playoff matchup, so I need A.J. Brown.
Can you legit fade Derrick Henry in this matchup if you're playing DFS this week?
Oh, sure, you can. I mean, it might burn you, but if he has 120 and 1 touchdown at his price, that's really not going to be a game changer.
No, not at all.
So he kind of needs 2 touchdowns and 150 to 200, which we know is possible. So yeah, look, anytime you have a player that's that high priced and you know is going to be high owned, it's game theory. Yeah, it's worth the fade. It might burn you, and you might be like, well, I should have done that. But, you're playing an ownership game when you're in GPPs as well. It's not just total points. And if Henry underperforms, gets injured early on, then you got a big leg up on the field. It doesn't feel good. I mean, you could be sitting there Sunday like, why did I fade Derrick Henry 200 yards and 3 touchdowns later, right? So that's the thing. If you do have multiple lineups, maybe you do go a different route in one. Cash games, if you know, it doesn't matter. If you know the ownership is going to be high cash games and you feel strongly, just play them. Ownership doesn't matter in cash.
All right, Patriots taking on the Miami Dolphins. This line keeps going down. Miami's now favored by 1 point. Which that makes me smile because in the Westgate Super Contest, it's 2.5 is where that's locked. And I'm leaning on the Patriots here. I mean, the bottom line for me is it's Bill Belichick against a rookie quarterback. And we've seen as early as what Justin Herbert did against the Patriots a few weeks ago as a reason for me to just kind of avoid this game altogether. There's nothing beautiful about the Patriots offensively for fantasy purposes. And now with, Miami, I still struggle, to even start their defense going up against Patriots.
Yeah, I think in seasonal leagues, I would start the defense. It's just been so good. The only problem with that is Cam Newton just doesn't throw the ball a lot. So now you're reducing your opportunity for interceptions and you're hoping to get some sacks. So that's the one risk there. I'm not playing anyone on the Patriots. Now Damian Harris, James White listed as questionable. Cam Newton will not throw the ball unless they're down 2 or 3 touchdowns. I mean, his pass attempts, when you look at it, is just hideous. He did have a good game rushing against Miami earlier this year where he rushed for 2 touchdowns, but he only has 2 rushing touchdowns in the last 4 games, and 2 of them came in one game. He's not running as much. So I agree. No one on the New England side. And even Miami, I don't want to play anyone on the Miami side. This game totals 41.5. A lot of question marks. Looks like Mike Gesicki and Devontae Parker will play. They're listed as questionable. Earlier in the week, we thought there was no shot. Salvon Ahmed is listed as questionable. Maybe he comes back and gets a big workload since they seem to like to favor one back. But you got DeAndre Washington. Lynn Bowden's there now. Maybe they lose him into the slot. Jakeem Grant's. This is just a mess here across the board. And you want to try and avoid it if possible. I mean, I had DeAndre Washington I picked up a couple weeks ago, and I picked up Bowden this past week. And I'm probably not going to play any of him at this point. I thought I would earlier in the week, thinking all these guys were out, but now it just makes it dicey.
Seriously dicey. Chicago taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are favored by 3.5. The game is in Minnesota. Listen, it's Cousins, it's Cook, it's Jefferson, it's Thielen. A little splash of Irv Smith in there as Kyle Rudolph is going to be out. However, Chicago defense, rock solid here, and that's going to be an intriguing matchup. The pass rush there to get to Kirk Cousins, that's obviously a concern. Their run defense is good. So you can't really rely on Dalvin Cook to sit there and bust out a 200-yard day. And then on the other side of the field, listen, you still have some shortcomings in this Minnesota defense, so Trubisky, Allen Robinson, David Montgomery, that trio has really been on fire the last couple of weeks here. Are you buying into it?
Yeah, I'm always afraid of a letdown, especially in a divisional game, and it just feels dirty saying, yeah, I got confidence in Mitch Trubisky this week, but he does have 3 passing touchdowns in 2 of his last 3 games. He is, moving outside the pocket a little bit, something they weren't doing early in the year. So, yeah, Robinson, I mean, top 10 receiver this week. Montgomery, he has only 11 carries, though, in 2 of the last 3 games, and 2 big runs are responsible. So that's the one thing that I worry about. He's going to get 15 touches. He kind of feels like he should have gotten more in those games, especially with the matchups. But, yeah, I mean, you're going to play those guys. If you really want to go cheap at tight end, Cole Kmet. I know Jimmy Graham got the touchdown last week. He's listed as questionable. But Cole Kmet's played about 70% of the snaps the last few weeks, so he seems to have surpassed Graham. He's cheap at tight end. But Irv Smith definitely on the other side, the better play. He had a touchdown last week, and Rudolph it looks like he's not going to play. So I think we might see some points in this game. I'm kind of tempted here to take the over 46.5.
Oh, I like that. I definitely like that. Now you got me thinking, do I start Kirk Cousins? Oh, good heavens here. I got Kirk Cousins. I got Drew Brees. Baker Mayfield, what to do. Yes, it's a league that you and I are in, so I'll have to sneak in that question to you some other way. Nevertheless.
Yeah, Truck did that. Truck texted me yesterday about the quarterbacks. I'm like, I didn't answer it. I don't know if you're watching, Truck, but sorry, bro. Come on. We're competing against each other in the overall.
Truck against me.
I know.
We're playing. Come on.
He's like, if Keenan Allen doesn't play, would you play Rivers over Herbert? I didn't answer him.
Oh, man. Truck, you should have asked me. I would have told you to play Rivers. No doubt about it. Oh. San Francisco. Dallas. Here we go. Niners are a road favorite by 3 points. Raheem Mostert, he had the MRI earlier on his ankle. We're still not sure about him. His practice schedule does not sound promising, very limited. Jeff Wilson would probably be the guy to step in as the running back, which makes him a great value play here, especially going up against Dallas. So we that. Brandon Ayuk is in the middle of a breakout here. Over under 45. How do you see this game going realistically? Just because, Zeke's been a disappointment, obviously. Dalton hasn't been great. CeeDee Lamb, who was Dalton's favorite target, well, now it seems to be Gallup or Cooper. So this is all a little bit confusing as to where we're going to get our fantasy points.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of fantasy points in this game. If Mostert's out, clearly Wilson is in the RB2 conversation. Good DFS play. He'll be cheap. Right. Now, I really don't love running backs that don't catch passes a lot, but he can rush for 2 touchdowns. Dallas is just horrible defensively. Brandon Ayuk, I have as a top 10 wide receiver this week. It looks crazy, but look at the numbers he's put up. 16 targets last week after Deebo Samuel left the game. He's had double-digit targets in his last 4 games. Dallas is horrendous against wide receivers. They've allowed 22 touchdowns to receivers this year, 6 touchdowns to receivers in the last 4 games. Ayuk is just money in the bank, and they keep throwing to him. So you got to get him in your lineup. You just have to find a way. Even if you're deep at wide receiver, we're probably going to play him over some receivers that maybe you're surprised about. There's a chance George Kittle plays. I doubt it, but that maybe at least bodes well for maybe next week if you held on to him. That's pretty much it. I guess Kendrick Bourne, deep sleeper, DFS, if you're looking for a cheap receiver, maybe he finds the end zone. On the Dallas side, there's really not much I like. I went on a rant on Alarm After Hours about Ezekiel Elliott. Stop playing this guy, man. He's not a must start. No, anyone who's saying this is and I've had this argument for a long time. I hear people say, well, Zeke is RB6, 7 on the season. Do you know why? He's played almost every game. You got to look at points per game. And especially this year when you're talking about, well, this guy's RB6, RB7, Montgomery's at top. It's because they have volume. This is a bad year with all the injuries. So I don't care if you're RB6 or 7. That doesn't tell me anything. And the other thing is, look at Zeke's stats. The first 5 games, it's all front-loaded. When we talk about consistency, it's all in the beginning of the season with Dak Prescott at quarterback and when the line was healthier. The offensive line is decimated. Zeke's banged up. He's dealing with a calf issue. He's not 100%. Pollard looks better. He's only had 2 double-digit games of PPR in his last 5 games. He had a smash spot last week against Cincinnati and did nothing. So Zeke is not a top 20 running back. I don't care where you drafted him. I don't care what his stock was. That's over with, man. You shouldn't be I have to get him in. I'd play. There's Mike Davis over him, James Robinson, Montgomery, Swift, Jeff Wilson. If Mostert's out, I'm playing Jeff Wilson over Zeke. There's a chance Zeke is not 100%, and we see more Pollard. So Zeke's not a must start at all. And on Dallas, yeah, Cooper, you can play. He's been pretty consistent. CeeDee Lamb has a good matchup in the slot, but we've seen it a couple times recently and he hasn't come through. So it's not a lot to like on the Dallas side.
Are you okay? Did that hurt a little bit?
No, it like I'm a Cowboys fan, and just like people keep ranking Zeke in the top 12. Like, what are we doing?
Dude, it's like the tax you pay on betting on Dallas against the spread, right? I mean,
yeah,
everybody loves
like
betting
that.
on Dallas.
Yeah, they always get that respect. Although I don't know if you saw this story. Jalen Smith found out yesterday that it wasn't a night game because remember this was originally Sunday night and they flexed it,
right?
And they moved the Browns Giants in. He just found out yesterday that it was a night game, that it was a day game and moved. He thought it. And he's like, yeah, I don't look ahead to things like that. He's like, I'm not lying. Ask my girlfriend, ask people around me. I take it day by day. So he thought it was a night game.
Uh-oh. All right, let's keep moving through here. Jets, Rams. It's a 17.5-point spread for the Rams. I'm all in on the Rams covering this spread. Does the Millie Maker winner have that Jared Goff to Robert Woods tandem in their lineup? Because listen, dude, I've gone through this already, and I've gone through Russell Wilson, 204 yards and four. I gotta pull this up because this is actually this makes me smile in a perverse sort of way. But if you look at what's gone on against the Jets in recent weeks, so Russell Wilson, 204 yards passing, but 4 touchdowns. Derek Carr, 381 and 3. I did this with Fensty on the DFS one here. Fitzpatrick, only 257, but 2 touchdowns for himself there. Justin Herbert, 366 and 3. Cam Newton only threw for 274 yards, but he rushed for 2 touchdowns.
And it's Cam Newton, so we'll put an asterisk on that one.
You can put an asterisk on it. Pat Mahomes, 416 yards and 5 touchdowns against the Jets. Before that, it was Josh Allen, 307 yards. And actually, there were no touchdowns in that one. So that's where, if you look at just these last 6 games, I mean, it's just been abusive here. Now, I know that, people are like, oh, well, Jared Goff sucks, blah, blah, you can't read defense, this and that. No, I don't even think you need to read a defense here.
Yeah, this is a matchup Goff can take advantage of. I think against more competent defenses and smart coaching, he'll have trouble. Like Belichick's going to fluster him, even though they won that game. I don't think the Goff-Woods Cup stack's going to be popular because I think people are going to look at the total of 43.5. They're going to look at Cam Akers. So I could be wrong, but I don't think that's going to be a highly owned stack.
Oh, I love that. I don't even know if I need to stack Cup in there also. I just want that pair, that Goff Woods. Like, that's the one that's going to be absolute money in the bank. If I want to throw Cup in there as like a full stack, sure, I can do that. But, then you kind of have to, I don't feel the need to do it that way. I feel like because of the pricing, I could probably get a couple of other plays in there. But, pay down for Goff, mid-tier price range for Woods. I mean, this is
yeah. The only thing is, look, it worked for Wilson last week. You might only get 3/4 out of him. I mean, look, it's really hard to see the Jets being competitive in this game with the way the Rams have played and they have the extra days off. I mean, we've seen crazy things in the NFL, but the Jets are just absolutely a mess right now. Offensively, Crowder's banged up. Like, there's no one on the Jets you can play this week. No one.
No. Which means that I don't need anything coming back on my stack, which is, again,
this is one game where you just don't want anything back on the other side. You don't.
Nothing. What do you think about taking the Rams and the points and giving the points?
Look, it's a high number, but I'll probably stay away from it. But, yeah, I can't blame anyone who does.
Yeah. I think because of the Super Contest, the Westgate, because we're not taking Saturday games because we would have to throw in all of our picks already, and I want to be able to wait until we get all this last minute news, especially waiting on Stafford and figuring out what's going to happen there. So yeah, I might just take the Rams, just say screw it. Here's a spread. Here's a point spread that I really, it's like a head scratcher for me. Eagles on the road. They're getting 6 points here from the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals beat the Giants with half a Daniel Jones last week, so I can't be impressed by that. The win before that for them was the Hail Mary. They're not a good team. Jalen Hurts now under center. Miles Sanders woke up because of the read option being run there for the Eagles. Like, I'm confused by this one here. It just seems like everybody's just assuming Kyler Murray's going to be back to normal. He's going to be hitting DeAndre Hopkins, because I don't know if we're going to see a Darius Slay this week.
Yeah, I do think the Cardinals offense has a good game here. Chase Edmonds, a game-time decision. Kenyon Drake hasn't been spectacular, but he keeps scoring, so he's in the RB2 conversation. Kyler Murray ran 13 times last week. I think that's a good sign. The Eagles' defense is banged up, so I like him, like Hopkins. I think Christian Kirk's a deep sleeper. I know he hasn't done anything, but I think this is a matchup he can exploit. Not saying jam him in your lineup, but if you are desperate, maybe this is a game he bounces back. And on the Philly side, look, Jalen Hurts is a borderline QB1. If he's going to run as much as he does, he doesn't need to do much in the passing game. The one guy he looks for in the receiving corps looks like Jalen Reagor. If you want to go cheap there, Goddard would be the other guy. And I think, Sanders, you feel good about. We talked about it last week. Sanders was excited for the read option, and you see why. When you have that running quarterback, it opens things up, and Sanders came through with a big run. So he's, right at the top of the RB2 conversation.
Finishing off the daytime games, we've got Chiefs Saints. It is the return of Drew Brees. So it's Mahomes versus Brees, Tyreek Hill versus Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. Welcome back. Like, all of a sudden now he went from, with Brees under center, averaging 24.4 points per game fantasy and PPR, down to 14.6 without Brees under center. So obviously, that's a big deal, especially when you look at the fact that the Chiefs' run defense is pretty damn soft.
Yeah, you get Kamara at a pretty cheap price on DK, 7,400 full point PPR. So, yeah, it definitely moved him up the rankings today. Michael Thomas didn't practice the last 2 days, so keep an eye on what he does today. He's in a good spot. I think Jared Cook, it helps as well.
Yep.
So you like what you see here for the Saints with Brees back. Although, first game back, how does he look? So I think he's like a high QB2. I wouldn't be rushing to get him in depending on what you have. And then on the Chiefs side, it's a tough matchup, Saints, but I don't care. Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. You don't feel good about the running backs right now. CEH needs a touchdown to come through. They just not throwing to him a lot. So, kind of similar to what I said to Zeke. He's right around the Zeke area, like outside the top 20 running backs right now. And this should be a fun game. It's a big game for both teams. I mean, that number one seed is big, and the Saints with that loss last week have fallen behind Green Bay.
All right. The night game on Sunday, Cleveland Browns against the New York Giants. It's going to be Colt McCoy. Not only is it going to be Colt McCoy, but you got Freddie Kitchens now calling the plays. Is this not the ultimate revenge game narrative? Colt McCoy and Freddie Kitchens, Adam, going up against the Browns. And I'll tell you what, man, this one here, it's 6.5. This spread keeps going up and up and up. But the Giants are one of the best teams at covering as a dog. Not even just a dog, but a home dog at that.
Yeah, Cleveland's just a better team, but this is a night game. It's going to be cold. I don't know about the wind situation. The Giants haven't been great against the run lately. We're going to see a lot of Chubb and Hunt. Bradbury's out. I think that's really good for Rashard Higgins, who I was a little worried about, but now I feel a little bit better about. So, look, you're starting Chubb, you're starting Landry. Don't love Baker here because I don't know if he's going to have to throw a lot. I mean, the Giants' offense is going to be so conservative. Giants, and Evan Ingram was added to the injury report today. He's questionable. So keep that in mind because I think a lot of people, look at him as a starter. So if he's out, that hurts the offense more. McCoy's going to play a conservative dink and dunk. It's just hard to like anything on the Giants side. Maybe Wayne Gallman. So, yeah, not a lot to like here, I think, on the Giants side. As good as they've been, but it's hard to like anything.
All right. Speaking of hard to like, Monday Night Football is not really a game anybody really wants to see. Pittsburgh traveling to Cincinnati. They're a 12.5-point favorite in this one. I mean, we still don't know if it's Brandon Allen or Ryan Finley. And Finley's terrible. There is nothing in the backfield between Gio Bernard and Travion Williams and Samaje Perine. Is this the get-right game for the ground game for Pittsburgh is really what everybody wants to know. How confident are you in starting James Conner this week?
Oh, not very. He's outside the top 25, 20. Yeah, I think he's 24, 25 for me, and I don't feel good about that. But he was limited in practice today with this quad issue. That game is Monday night, so keep that in mind. If you don't get proper news on Sunday, I don't think I'd wait around for him. And could Benny Snell do something? Yeah, he could score a touchdown and gain 40 yards. I do think this is a get-right game for Pittsburgh, though. I'm playing Deontay Johnson. I know people are worried about the drops and all that. Ben Roethlisberger said he had a talk with him, and it went well. I just don't see the offense the same without Deontay Johnson. So I still think he's the receiver I'm starting. I'm not confident in Chase Claypool. His snaps have gone down the last couple of weeks.
Right.
Juju's okay. Ben's a high QB2, but I do think Pittsburgh bounces back in this game. Cincinnati's just a mess. They're just atrocious. So I do think Pittsburgh bounces back, but I'm not sure about the running game. Like, I don't see this is a semifinal playoff week for most leagues. How can you start James Conner with confidence with what we've seen? He had this matchup a couple weeks ago, and I think it was 13 carries, 36 yards. So they just can't run the football.
No, they cannot. No, they cannot. And that's it. That's the full look right here at week 15. What you got coming up ahead? Man, it's going to be crazy. Fantasy Alarm has you totally covered. I'm actually in the process right now of writing up a playbook for the Saturday 2-game slate. I only play GPP when it's a 2-game slate, so we're going to have a little fun with it. We're going to find some nice deep dives, some contrarian plays, of course. Adam is fully at your disposal over the next couple of days. He'll be back in chat on Sunday morning for everybody. It's fantasyalarm.com/chat. Adam, any parting words of wisdom as you send everybody off into their fantasy playoff matchup?
Yeah, don't get too cute this week. Play the guys that you think are the best starts. Don't look at name value where you drafted. Doesn't matter at this point, as we touched upon with Ezekiel Elliott, James Conner. And I'll have updated rankings. I'll make another sweep today. I already got Breeze in the rankings, took out Taysom Hill, and I'll continue to do so today and early tomorrow as you set your lineups for your Saturday games.
Fantastic. All right. Well, big thanks to all of you for watching. Big thanks to our producer, Ed Bonnell, today. For Adam Ronis, I'm Howard Bender. This has been Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. We'll catch you next time.